Hello, everyone. I am Anthropomantic Fiends. I do horror-related things on the internet, and I have the people who have made the Carmilla the radio play, which will be releasing soon. So if
2
I don't
weeks
know
from tonight.
Oh, say that again.
2 weeks from tonight.
The radio play, which will be releasing soon. So if
2 weeks from tonight.
Someone's got the audio going on their end.
And that might have been me, and I just canceled it. If that was me.
Okay,
no,
cool.
Actually, I believe that might have been my other browser. I had to close the other browser to get this to work, and it wasn't closing. Okay, and now it just did.
Gotcha. Cool. Anyway, so if people want to introduce themselves and talk about what it is they do, I don't know where we want to start, but I can start with you, David, I guess.
Oh, I love to begin with me. What do you want to know? Just my name is David MacDowell Blue. I have a degree in theater. I'm a graduate of the National Shakespeare Conservatory. Carmilla is one of my very, very favorite stories. It is one of my top 2 favorite vampire stories. I have been dissatisfied with virtually every adaptation I've ever seen to some degree. So like any good playwright or writer, I wrote my own. In this particular era, I thought it was best to try to do it as an audio version because of pandemic. And several months ago, I said, I decided, after I'd gone through the workshop process of getting the script essentially in shape, I decided to go for it and make the audio version. And I am now in the process of editing the sound files together. More than half is done. The first 2 acts are completely finished. A big chunk of the other 3 acts, each one is about 20 minutes long, will be ready. And premieres 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, March 1st, 2022.
Awesome.
Yeah, I guess I'll go next. Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany DeLeon. Thanks for coming and listening to us today. I play Laura in the show, and it's a pleasant surprise. So if you're expecting a Laura that you've seen before, it's definitely, a little off the beaten track for sure. I am, a production coordinator by day, actor by night. So yeah, I think that's it for me. Stepy, how about you?
Okay, well, I'm Stepy Kamei. I play Carmilla. Kind of a dream role for me. I first read Carmilla when I was 19 years old in college. I took a class about vampires. A few years later, I moved to LA. I met David, and we talked about Carmilla for a couple of hours. Then here we are, like 7 years later, and I get to play Carmilla, and it's been a dream. It has been a joy. It has been a blast. I cannot wait for everyone to hear it. We've all been hard on it. It's been so fun. So I don't even know what I was supposed to say, but yeah, I'm just really excited. And Carmilla is amazing, and I'm so lucky I got to play her. It's been amazing.
Awesome. So you've kind of touched on this already, but my first question was going to be like, you've kind of touched on this already, Stepy, but like what your first exposure to the story of Carmilla was in any form, and like what appealed to you about doing an adaptation, and like specifically doing something that hasn't been done in other adaptations.
I'll continue on it, I guess.
Right.
So I did mention it. I first read it, and literally I went to San Francisco State University, and if any university is going to offer a class called the Vampire Tradition, it's going to be SF State. So that's how I got into this. I fell in love immediately. I had no interest in vampires. I grew up when Twilight was the big thing, and I was like, and then I got introduced to actual vampires like Carmilla. Just totally amazing. Now, answer your question or address the part about doing something that's a little different without spoiling too much, I really dig our takes on Laura and Carmilla. There's some new, I don't know how much I can say, but Carmilla, there's so much depth to the way David wrote this version of Carmilla. I assure everybody out there, she's not just a one-note villain or like, I'm going to drink your blood. There's so much to her. The amount of times we would be recording or rehearsing and it would go silent and they'd be like, Stepy, are you crying again? And I'd be like, yes. I felt so much for Carmilla's journey and her story. So I'm really excited for people to see that interpretation. Because like you said, there's definitely been some, or somebody here was saying there's been some interpretations of Carmilla where she's very just evil and then she just like dies or whatever. And that's the end.
Yeah.
Really excited that we took a different approach.
Yeah. You know, it's really funny that you bring up Twilight because I'm reading that for a college class right now.
Wow.
Second time.
Okay.
Oh, what class?
I had a friend of mine turn me and insist I read Twilight, and I enjoyed that well enough. I was more interested in how people reacted to Twilight. That was much more interesting. What is interesting to me also as the person who wanted me to read Twilight is the biggest fan of torture porn I have ever known. Loves Saw and Hostel and things like that. And then she loved Twilight, which I just think is a lovely comment on the dichotomy in human nature.
Yeah. Well, I think 50 Shades of Grey started as Twilight fan fiction, if that says anything about people.
Yes. I'm not going to blame Stephanie Myers for that, though.
No.
That would not be fair.
But yes, I'm reading this. So I took a Beauty and the Beast in Literature class last term, which is what we read this for. And I'm taking a mythography of the monstrous class with the same teacher this term. So
very cool.
all the monsters.
I like your classes better than mine.
Literally. Let's just all go to your college.
Yeah.
Done. Oh yeah, I gotta ask the question, right? Interview. So yeah, my first exposure. I mean, as a kid, I was like a vampire for like Halloween. I feel like 9 times out of 10 Halloweens, I suppose. But the first exposure that I had to vampires was Interview with the Vampire. And I don't know, people have their opinions on it, but I loved it. I love period pieces, to say the least. But yeah, the second part of your question was about Carmilla. I think that it was a pleasant surprise, you know, and you'll hear me say this like later on, just because it's so, I guess, groundbreaking to me, like in my brain, is just like the connection that me and Stepy had over, you know, audio. Like there was time, like, and literally there were times where she was like right here, but 400 miles away, you know? So I think that's something different. Like, and I hope that people, when they listen to it, they can feel that, you know? So.
Can I tell you something? I wanted to mention this to you and Stepy, is that there were certain recordings you made. I have not listened all the way through. I just got a little bit too, okay, I have what I need. I think I feel I'm not going to listen to any more of that because that seems private. It just got so like, I got what I need. No, doesn't feel good for me to listen to the rest of that.
There needs to be like a blooper reel for people who want to listen to it. They can.
Okay, so what you're saying, I have your permission to make an OnlyFans account of this? I can always use a source of income, to be honest. That was a joke. I'm not going to do that.
I know. Of course. I was like,
I'm getting hot and sweaty. I must stop.
It was cool while it lasted.
Very cool.
Yeah. I just, I should mention something that this might bounce off of what Stepy and Brittney were saying, is, you know, that there's several things. I am a person, part of this is how my philosophy, how literature was particularly read in the 19th century, because there were no books, because there were no movies, there was no radio, there was no TV, much less internet. So people reread things over and over and over again, often aloud. And the result is you get a lot of things when you reread the story very, very carefully. And one of the things I reread very carefully was that, Laura, who's the narrator, her story doesn't quite make sense. She's contradicting herself now and then. And certain things you just start thinking, no, wait a minute. Is she that naive? And so I concluded she's an unreliable narrator. That she is talking to someone, as we have it, by the way, in this version, that Laura is telling what happened to a specific someone. And I'm assuming she's lying for a chunk of the time. And I think, well, how well she succeeds is another question, but it's so. And I certainly say that Brittney, in that aspect, certainly just pounced right on that with a certain degree of glee. So, I have been telling people for weeks and weeks that when they get to hear this, this cast is going to knock their socks off.
Fantastic. I have some questions I want to get into. I'm also going to encourage people in the chat to do things, but also I want to highlight a few other comments really quick. First of all, Ria from the band Karnstein, who are fantastic, says Twilight is like a car crash. They're terrible, but I watched all 5 films in 3 days, as you should.
It's fair.
I agree.
My friend Tristan, Collector Man, says, I got into Carmilla via Anthro's readings on his channel, and I recommend checking those out for anyone who hasn't. I read Carmilla all the way through on YouTube a couple years ago. So
very cool.
Well, okay, on my list.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Ria again says, I read Carmilla for the first time in 2019 and decided to change my entire personality based on it. I feel that. I feel that.
That's amazing.
I read Carmilla. So I have this beat up old 7 masterpieces of Gothic horror book that I found in like a secondhand bookstore years and years ago. And I had like read Frankenstein and Dracula at that point, but Carmilla just hadn't gotten around to it yet. And then at some point in junior year of high school, I decided to read Carmilla. And there was, have you watched the YouTube web series based on Carmilla? Yes. It's one of my favorite things. So I watched the web series and I read the book simultaneously. And from that point on, I just kept falling down the rabbit hole of Carmilla. So
amazing.
Yeah, actually, that's how I first got into Carmilla, was a web series.
Yeah.
So without that web series, we wouldn't be here right now. Well, I wouldn't. So, but yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. I don't know. We met each other outside of Carmilla.
Yeah.
Brittney and I are members of the same theater company. And she has actually been in 2 other readings of plays of mine. So
That's correct. Yeah.
Come to think of it, both of those characters are gay too.
I mean, it's the world. I don't understand. So
yeah. One of them's a superhero.
Yeah. I play a superhero in one, and then the other one I play. What do I play in the other one?
I'll use my description that you always found so amusing.
Thank you.
Anyone who has seen Downton Abbey.
Oh yeah.
And think of the Dowager Duchess. Now imagine her gay and age 19.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And that's who Brittney was playing. So, when I explained it in that terms, it's kind of a little, not light bulb because it's a Victorian play, but a little candle lit up above her head.
Very
But
accurate.
yeah. So, Brittany, you might have, I certainly would have asked you to audition
Oh, thank you.
for Carmilla. I certainly would have.
Right.
So, yeah. I was going to say also, I first read Carmilla when I was about 13.
That's young. Ooh.
Yeah, so yeah.
Long time
Wow.
in making.
Nixon was president.
That's cool.
Wow.
Silence. Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah. So, can you tell me, Brittany, about how you approached playing Laura? Like, what did you want to inject into the character, like from what was in the book, but also like putting your own spin on what was already there?
Yeah. So with David's text, I'm not gonna lie, it's written very well. There's a lot of subtext within it, and it's kind of like she's talking to somebody else, but she's really like in person. She's talking like I'm talking to you, but I'll say things in a certain way where like it's meant for Stepy, So there's a lot of that. I really just wanted to give Laura more gusto, like more just of a personality, instead of like that little damsel in distress, that we've seen, or that she's portrayed. But yeah, it's spicy, to say the least. Let's see, how else can I answer this question? Honestly, I think we gravitate towards characters that we ourselves see, that we see in ourselves, So and I don't think I can I say a line? I can't say a line. I'm not gonna say a line. Secret, you guys have to watch it. But
you can say a line. It's a wonderful teaser.
Okay, great. I'm not gonna say it exactly, but she pretty much references to like singing with the gargoyles, whenever, and like climbing on the roof and like jumping from tower to tower and just exploring. And as a kid growing up, that's kind of like where I was. Like I was climbing trees and trying not to fall out of them, and pretending I was some type of thing that I wasn't. And I think playing Laura, that part of me was really fun to like interject into that. But yeah, I think that was a question. I'm really bad at these, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. And yeah, another thing I was wondering about is you mentioned being dissatisfied with a lot of other adaptations, David. I just wanted to ask everyone, favorite Carmilla adaptation other than the one that is yours, but also what bothers you about other Carmilla adaptations? We can start with you, David.
Okay, mine is kind of thorough. The things I most dislike about other adaptations are first, basically stripping Laura of every trace of a personality or willpower. This usually goes hand in hand with giving her a suitably aged male romantic interest, which of course is not there.
Yeah.
For a reason. And the portrayals of Carmilla as nothing more than this ravenous beast, who at best is, after almost 200 years of life, is just this bully who wants to eat. I cannot think how boring. I mean, boy, she'd have to be pretty damn stupid. After 200 years of life, that's what she's interested in? It's my similar complaint of almost all adaptations of Dracula. Because is it really? That's all you're interested in? Now, so I can think of several versions I just do not like at all, some of which are actually well done. I just don't like them as adaptations, like Roger Vadim's version. that turned it into a romantic love triangle between two women and a man.
They like to do that.
Yeah. I would say my favorite versions, first of all, would be the Polish television version, which I'll bet and none of you have ever seen. It's very hard to find, but it's remarkably, it's remarkably faithful. And Laura is a waif, and you can see that she's like struggling. She doesn't like it. You know, she is not happy with her life, but she's also not used to any kind of agency. And while I didn't particularly love that particular Carmilla, I thought it was wonderful. It was a wonderful exploration of Laura. There is a film that has been called The Curse of Styria, which I thought is a genuinely interesting way to approach the film. I actually got to see the very first screening of it because I interviewed one of the writer-directors for the magazine vampires.com.
Excellent.
That is a series, they didn't ignore the political aspect of it because they set it in Hungary just before the Iron Curtain fell. So it was an oppressive state, the way Austria really was in the period of when the novel was published and when it takes place. I like that very much. I do adore the web series. That's just too much fun, and I love the ultimate philosophical courage, particularly of the series finale.
Yes.
And sorry, bugs. And I thought that I'll mention two guilty pleasures. I did like the Nightmare Classics one, about half of it, with Ione Skye and Meg Tilly. About half of it was just gorgeous and wonderful, and the rest of it was just, they're trying to turn this into a Dracula and not doing a very good job. And I have a certain guilty pleasure into The Vampire Lovers, the Hammer film, which Stepy described very eloquently with one word at one point. That word being and, but I thought it was gorgeous. I thought Madeline Smith transcended the shallowness of the way her part was written, and I thought Ingrid Pidd gave us some hint of how I saw Carmilla.
Yes.
Being, a reluctant vampire, a la Barnabas Collins, etc.
Yeah. Oh man, I dressed as Barnabas Collins for Halloween. I love Dark Shadows.
I've got an Inverness cape. I really do. I have a black Inverness cape. So
nice.
I
had a replica Barnabas ring that I used to wear, and it broke, and I'm so sad.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
I need to just like hot glue it back together. I just haven't yet. But yeah, I love The Vampire Lovers, and it bothers me. Yeah. I reviewed all 3 movies in Hammer's Karnstein trilogy on my YouTube channel. Cool. I like Twins of Evil. It's not a Carmilla movie, but it's fun. Lust for a Vampire hurt me. I hate Lust for a Vampire.
But it has plenty of, say it with me, Stepy?
Boobs.
Definitely.
Which one is the one that has lots of boobs? So, cool.
Actually, it's all of them, but mostly Lust for the Vampire.
Yeah. And it's like, it's the most boobs, but it's the least queer film in.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean,
and it's the least erotic.
Yeah, which is weird. And they're trying to do this like reluctant romance between Carmilla and this guy. And they have a little love theme that they've written for them, and it just.
And honestly, the actress playing Carmilla can't act, so.
Yeah, the actress playing Carmilla in all 3 movies in the Karnstein trilogy is a different person every time too, which is fun.
Yeah, and
One's
they get
Carmilla, and one's Carmilla, and one's the other
Yeah.
name we used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Milarka, Mirkala. Yeah.
yeah.
They never use Marcilla. I don't know why.
I-
That seems like such an obvious one.
I feel like they might have used that in the Vampire Lovers, but I don't remember.
I don't think so.
I might be wrong about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing about Lust for a Vampire. It's like Mirkala is her pseudonym and Carmilla is her real name, so they've switched it for some reason. It's very strange.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a question in the chat if I can find it. Not that one. Yes, that one. Thoughts on Lost Boys, Fright Night, more non-traditional like 80s vampire movies?
I have thoughts. I'm just gonna jump in. Lost Boys. Love the Lost Boys. I first saw that movie right around my freshman year of college. So obviously college is like the time of experimentation. For me, it was the time I discovered I'm goth and I love vampires. I watched Lost Boys, and for Halloween that year, my freshman year of college, I was a Lost Boy. And I dressed up as in a leather jacket. I had black boots, and I put on eye makeup, and basically I was just goth, you know. And I walked around that whole evening, that Halloween evening, thinking, I don't feel like I'm wearing a costume. I actually really like, this is who I am. And so I have a really personally, when I saw Lost Boys, I was like, yes, let's talk about it. It really awakened something in me. I think it's a great movie. I also really like, I think this is in the 90s. Oh gosh, I always forget the name. Is it Near Dark?
Yeah.
Love that movie too. There's so many from like the 80s and 90s. I haven't seen Fright Night. No, I think I have. Remind me what happens in Fright Night.
So there's a vampire that moves next door to this teenage boy and sees him biting a bunch of people. So he calls the horror movie host to deal with him, Roddy McDowell. Really
yes.
fun.
Also a good movie, but it's been a while since I've seen that one. But yes, I freaking love The Lost Boys, and I'll let
Susan Sarandon's first husband is playing the vampire.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's
very cool.
Brittany, I've been flapping my jaw.
Yeah, I'm gonna admit, and I think everybody's gonna not like me after this, but I haven't seen Lost Boys or Fright Night. I don't 80s movies, cool. I love them, but I haven't seen all of them. I mean, the other vampire movie that I could reference is like Daybreak or Daybreakers, something like that. But that one's really cool. Yeah. So now I have lots of homework to watch Lost Boys and Fright Night. So
I haven't seen Daybreakers. I need to see Daybreakers.
It's so good. Okay.
I have seen Lost Boys. I enjoyed it, except the more I look back at it, I say, well, it's more visually wonderful than in terms of story. And I've always felt it didn't end so much as stop. Fright Night, I thought worked very, very well. My favorite vampire films, and some of them are rather atypical. One of my absolute top favorite is Let Me In. Which is a tie really with the Swedish film of a similar name. Let the Right One In. I love those films. Others would be Shadow of the Vampire, which is built around the premise that when Nosferatu was made, the actor playing a vampire really was one, which is a lot of fun. And those are two of my favorite. I do like, Bram Stoker's Dracula and Interview with the Vampire very much. But my heart belongs to slightly odder ones, I think. Oh, and one of my favorites. This is more of the period. Lips of Blood, directed by Jean Rollin. One of the greatest French vampire films ever.
I need to get into Jean Rollin. I've been recommended his stuff so many times.
Yes. He of the twin girl vampires. There are twin girl vampires in a lot of his films, even if they're only wandering in the background. And of course, it's great he's making it in France, where of course finding an actual castle isn't too hard at all.
Nice.
So, but Lips of Blood is this amazing. I just saw it and I was floored, and I just adored that. So that, Let Me In, Shadow of the Empire. Those are among my very, very favorites.
I love Let the Right One In. I have not seen Let Me In, but I adore Let the Right One In.
Right, Percy, just think of it this way. It's a
Uh-huh.
different adaptation of the same novel.
Mm.
Don't expect it to be a remake of the Swedish film, but it is an adaptation of the same novel.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me people are just are upset that it was made, even though the writer was thrilled.
Mm.
But it's, for me, just personally, for me, Let Me In is slightly superior because, first, the cast is actually better, which when you look at the cast, you're going to go, well, that's no surprise, because there are some really superb actors in Let Me In. And I get it. It is set in American setting, so I don't have to have anything explained to me about why is that in the news so much.
Mm-hmm.
That business about the Russian submarine. Why is that so important in the news? The attitude towards alcoholism. Certainly the attitude towards religion in Let Me In is American. It is how Americans see these things. So it's an American story. It's set in the United States, same time period, 1980s, but it is different. And so, take it on itself.
Totally.
That's my advice. So that's my thing about that particular film, which I really, really love.
I will have to give Let Me In a try now, because the thing that's been putting me off of it really is there's a lot of stuff with Ely and gender in the original Swedish film that I really appreciate. And it's weird. I know it's weird in the book. It's really weird and disturbing in the book.
In the book, okay. What's in the movie, Let the Right One In?
Uh-huh.
You can literally miss it if you blink.
Yeah.
Okay? So they haven't dealt with it at all in the American film.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine because you'd have to explain it all. I mean, it's barely there. If you haven't read, I barely figured out what it was because I watched very carefully. And then when I read the book, I finally found out, oh, that is a very grisly backstory. That is, and for that matter, the book is so much more adult, so much more disturbing, so much more grisly than either film. I mean, really. You could not film a lot of what's in the book. You just could not. And you might say, oh, I don't want to see that filmed. So, as an interesting thing, I'm also going to mention this. I was once on a message board years ago, and I mentioned a bunch of parallels between Let the Right One In and Carmilla, and the author happened to be on the board and came in and said, actually, yes, you're very right, because Carmilla was a direct inspiration for Let the Right One In. So there.
That checks out. So we have a few other comments, if I can find them. Not that one, but talking about Chris Sarandon there.
Jack Skellington for life. Yes.
But my friend Dice, who has another great review channel, also highly recommends Fright Night Part 2, which I have not seen.
Which one? There are two.
Good question. I think they're referring to Part 2 of the 80s movie.
Which is a good film. The other one the other one's fun, but it's a popcorn movie. That's all.
Yeah. Sometimes you need that though.
Always.
Yeah. So Jacques is asking about Vampire, which I have not seen in years. Thoughts on Vampire?
I'm gonna go do a Google search on it.
I haven't seen that one. No, I haven't seen it. But German expressionist film in general is amazing. Yeah.
I've seen it. It is, contrary to what everyone says, it is not based on Carmilla in terms of plot. It is clearly, however, very much in the same atmosphere as the works of Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. That is crystal clear. It is almost a silent film. And uses amazing ideas of what you should do, of how to tell a story in a visual way. absolutely amazing. It is eerie and mystical and gothic and incredibly beautiful and melancholy. And it's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Um, During at some points in rehearsal, both Brittney and Stepy we were discussing, and some others actually had a few ideas, and I told them if I ever got the idea, I got a chance to like make a mini series of Carmilla. If this really takes off and Netflix says, "Hey, okay," then I would love to explore all sorts of really. We discussed a few ideas of really interesting things that, if we had a lot more time, we could get into that same kind of wonderfully weird mysticism, and that point where reality and nightmare are just kind of bleeding into each other, where dreams and reality are the same. And I would have loved to do that.
Yeah. Just the way Vampire just plays with like shadows is beautiful.
Yeah. And the sounds you do hear just are seem incredibly vivid because so much of it is so quiet.
Yeah.
The stillness of it. So that every single movement just suddenly is incredible. Even a movement of just, when the girl looks up, that was just, it still haunts me. She bares her teeth and looks up. There. Now, with a little bit of luck, Brittney and Stepy will go out and find that film and watch it.
Yes. You should watch it, but I know you haven't seen it, Stepy, but you did express an interest in German Expressionism. Can you talk about German Expression, maybe some of your favorite German Expressionists?
I mean, it might be a cliche to say, but the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I mean, like I was in film school for a little bit of time, and that was one of the things we watched, and everybody else in the class was like, "What the fuck is this?" And I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And it was so cool. And just so in film wise, and I would say Nosferatu is considered German Expressionist. Yeah, Nosferatu. I forgot the earlier question about like there's like movie recommended vampire movie. Like Nosferatu is like the first one I think of. It's so creepy and atmospheric and fascinating, and I feel like it was so indicative of its time historically, and like all the anxieties going on in the world, and also just so well done. And that iconic shot of him coming up the stairs, you don't even see him, you just see his shadow and his freaky ass nails, and it's so you know what I mean? And like that shot of him on the ship where you're looking up at him and he's just kind of like doing some weird stuff. It's just iconic. I feel like it's mandatory for any, not to sound like a snob, just like I'm so glad that I saw Nosferatu at a relatively young age. Make with that what you will. So yeah, German Expressionism. So now I really want to see this movie. This sounds awesome. It's on HBO Max, so I might be streaming that later.
Yeah.
Nice. For those of you in LA, on Halloween, the Ace Hotel has like streams, like not streams, but plays vampire movies, and then they have like the LA orchestra do the soundtrack or whatever it was, and that's how I saw Nosferatu.
That's
cool. It was really cool.
Yeah. Oh,
I attended a screening of Nosferatu a few years back. It was screened inside a church and had an improvised pipe organ score.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's so cool.
It was wonderful.
There's a gothic bar sometimes here in LA called Bar Sinister.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
I've heard of that
a few
too.
years ago I went there. It was before I was diagnosed with diabetes, so I could have a glass of absinthe, and I did. But in one of the rooms, they were just on a loop. They were continuously showing the entire film of Nosferatu against the wall.
I love that.
Live music or dance music, and there was a burlesque show. This was great.
Well, sign me up then. I'm gonna go tonight.
Yeah, and going back to Cabinet of Dr. Caligari again, I had watched it I got into German Expressionism at like a really young age, so we ended up watching Cabinet of Dr. Caligari that same junior year that I read Carmilla in my English class, I read Carmilla outside of the English class, but we watched Caligari in English class and had to write about it. And everybody was like, what is this movie? And I was like, why are they using such a terrible print of the movie? This music doesn't match the film. What is this? Use the restored version with the, this is, I was bothered because they were using this really grainy, bad quality print of the film.
Here's a what if that can bother you forever. What if a German expressionist studio and director had made a version of Carmilla, a silent Carmilla? Okay, now I see all three of your faces are now just agog at that thought, and quite rightly too.
Wow.
I mean,
Pre-code.
I think someone should just go back now and make a silent film adaptation of Carmilla in that style.
Let's just make it. Let's go. I'm down.
Oh, my money. Here's my bank account. Let's go.
Yeah.
Shut up and take my money.
Okay.
But getting back into, what were you going to say, David?
Oh, I was going to say, okay, now I have, now I have something to try to maybe look up some filmmakers I know and see if anyone's going to say, okay, I can write the script, but it's just, that would be really, I did write the outline for a screenplay of Carmilla years ago. I shared it with the people who made The Curse of Styria, and they sent back saying, okay, yeah, this would have been good. Yes. But now I've done that little bit. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just going to say, speaking of Carmilla adaptations, Ria from Karnstein is asking, has anyone seen Terror in the Crypt, aka Crypt of the Vampire? One of her favorite Carmilla adaptations, but never hears anyone talk about it.
Yeah. I wish I could say yes, just so I could be a friend, but I sadly no.
I own a copy.
Right.
This is the one where Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee is Count Karnstein.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And this one, Laura, they changed the names of almost everybody, but Laura is the daughter of the current Count Karnstein. And once again, they give Laura a romantic male love interest. And sadly, this means that once she's a very, very waifish person until she's around the Carmilla character, who is not named Carmilla, who is at least is given a little bit more of a motivation, which is that she's trying to kill off her entire family because they're the ones who killed her.
Ooh.
Okay. And so she's been seducing and murdering all the young women of the Karnstein family. And stuff, and that's cool. And it's black and white. It is beautifully filmed. You can see that it was filmed not anywhere near Eastern Europe. It was like Italy or Spain because the sunlight is just of a different quality.
Yeah.
It's the second filmed version of Carmilla. The first one being Blood and Roses by Roger Vadim, and it is by far closer to the story than Blood and Roses. It has an amazing atmosphere, absolutely amazing, and it very, very, and it's one of the few versions that includes the mountebank who is selling things.
Yeah, very cool.
And it's got some very, very interesting ideas in it, which are not originally in some of the novella, but are very, very worthwhile to explore. And very, very cool. I thought it's a really interesting adaptation of Carmilla. And you should check it out. I mean, it's it's beautiful. It's interesting. It's frankly, Steffi, Brittany, I think you both do a better job than the actors who are playing those roles.
Thank you.
but at least there's something really interesting there. And of course, because it's a part Italian production, all the women are incredibly voluptuous. Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
Okay, so there's that. Anyway, but yeah, that's Terror from the Crypt, also known Crypt of the Vampires, and I think it has Crypt of the She-Devils or something like that. It has a lot of
So
really
many
silly.
titles.
Yeah, but it is at least one vampire film where Christopher Lee is playing a vampire hunter.
Mhm.
That sounds like a perfect cast.
Eventually,
Yeah.
rather than the vampire.
Yep.
So-
The thing that I find really interesting about Crypt of the Vampire is a lot of the film, it tries to play it off like Laura is the one with the evil inside of her that's trying to kill her family, like for the whole movie. But if you've read the novella, you're kind of like, I'm not sure if this bait and switch thing is working for me because I know that the Carmilla character is the vampire here. But it's fun, and it's
On the other hand, wouldn't it have been cool if the end it wasn't a bait and switch was in the other direction, that actually she was the vampire all along. Yeah, that would have been cool. But they didn't do that. They went with the original story and then gave us Laura and Dr. What's-His-Name going off together in a carriage.
In a carriage.
Yes, and you two are, and the ladies were both going. So, but in incredibly bright sunlight. Yeah. So, but it's it's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's worth watching. I also like it's a lesser known, The Unforgiven.
The Unforgiven, or
yes.
Is it The Unwanted?
I think maybe The Unwanted. It's set in the American South.
Sorry, I dropped things, but I just got really excited because I have it with me here.
Cool.
And that is that twist that surprises everything about the story. Everything. It's set in the American South.
I have to see this.
It's good. It's
I
very
think
good.
It's an American South, and then she has to see it.
Yeah. I don't know, for some reason, like,
the rural American South, and
yeah.
And what the first things we begin is this girl not coming. She's hitchhiking. She comes to this town. She goes, knocks on the door, and she says, "Hi there. My name's Carmilla Karnstein. I'm looking for my mother. Her name was Mirkala Karnstein, and as far as I can tell, she was hitchhiking 20 years ago, and she disappeared in this town."
Cool.
That's fascinating. Can you
imagine? And Laura's father goes, "We've never heard of her. Go away. We've never heard of her." Okay. And then everything is a surprise from then on.
Yeah.
So
Everything.
tons of awesome recommendations. Like on Google.
I'm just going to be glued to my TV.
Yeah.
I want to get back to your adaptation in just a second, but first, you may have heard some of this already, David, but earlier I was telling them about The Blood-Spattered Bride, which is very different from one of my favorite adaptations. Thoughts on The Blood-Spattered Bride?
Mine? Okay, this, again, they introduced the male love interest, but of course set it at a Freudian antagonistic sort of thing. So it gave some justification to, the Carmilla character, like being the avenger of all women, as it were. It is, I believe this was not quite, no, this came out a little after Vampire Lovers. And so it has, it's more psychedelic in that it's set in the modern age and it's set in Spain. And it's kind of more spooky in a lot of ways. And it's in some ways far more disturbing because it gets into more like things of violence and including the violence against women. I would be a trigger warning about sexual assault.
Yeah, Definitely.
seeing this film.
Oh,
Good to know.
Um,
Is it like at
yeah.
the level of I Spit on Your Grave?
No.
No,
Okay.
no, not that level, not that level.
Okay.
But, and also
Nothing's
there
up.
is something a little bit about, like, that last girl was underage.
Mm,
And
oh,
okay.
yeah. And
Noted.
it's very disturbing, and it has amazingly original imagery and stuff. Yeah, it's certainly in the top half of Carmilla film adaptations, in my opinion.
Hmm.
So that's me. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I agree with all of that.
As far as I know, there are only 2 film versions of Carmilla I have not seen. One is a French miniseries from the 1980s, which may still exist out there. I just haven't found a copy of it. And the other is a BBC version from 1966 that, as far as anyone knows, is lost.
Oh.
Gotta
We can
find-
only hope that maybe there is a copy that was sent out to the Commonwealth somewhere out there and is in some
Dust-
warehouse or back closet or something, and someone finds it, or someone actually did the thing you're not supposed to do, which is film the TV and capture that. All we have is about a half dozen photographs
Wow.
of it. I don't know if the film was even made in full color. The photographs are in full color, and the cast looks very good and very lush, and Laura looks very waifish. That actress later played Bianca in the Zeffirelli film version of The Taming of the Shrew.
I played Bianca before. That's cool.
Ah, okay. And the actress playing Carmilla was named Jane Marrow. And if you saw her, you'd see, oh, I've seen her in so many films. She's been in lots and lots of films. Possibly her most famous role was playing Princess Elise in the original film version of The Lion in Winter, opposite Peter O'Toole. So, yeah, that one, as far as we know, is lost.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Stepy, your version of Carmilla, can I ask you similarly to Brittney, what about this version of Carmilla is different, both in the text from the original novel, and what did you try to bring to the character?
Yeah. Just try to without spoiling too many things. Like I had mentioned earlier in the chat just now, it was so important to me, I think to David too, to everybody here, to not have Carmilla just be a one-note villain, just be like, I'm evil, just be I suck blood because I feel like it. She's so nuanced. There's so much depth. Lot of subtext. We've been discussing that earlier too. I think there's also a bit of there's moment because she's so powerful, right? Like she's an all-powerful vampire, and she has to. There's one great scene with a little bit of comedy, I guess. Just a little bit of her sass comes out. I won't say the line, but it's pretty great. Where somebody, you can just tell, hopefully through my portrayal, that she's just giving this vibe of, okay, mortal man, like, yeah, you tell me what to do. You go ahead and try that, and it's pretty. It was one of my favorite things to record. So I think there's just a really great amount of personality to her. Just because she's undead doesn't mean she doesn't have personality, and there's quite a lot of deep sadness and tragedy. Reluctant vampires, phrase that came up a lot while we were rehearsing. She's very reluctant, and there's tragedy. There's deep, dark stuff in Carmilla's soul. I mean, you can see in the original text, there's certain passages where she seems very like, okay, lady, you're a little crazy, a little dramatic. Where she's like trembling, like, I love you, and I don't know what to do. And it's fun because I did reread the novella to prepare for this role, and there's she has these very intense moments, and then just kind of doesn't really get addressed again. You're like, what was that? And I think we try to make that a little more clear why she's having these strong emotional outburst reactions. There's reasons, there's history. She's 200 years old, for Christ's sake. Like there's stuff. And I guess to answer the question in a more concise way, I think there's just a lot of depth and nuance to her that I had a joy and a blast to portray, and I really hope everyone has a joy and a blast listening to.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I
love her so much.
I'm very excited. So I just realized I passed up another question from my friend Collector Man asking about the time period of your adaptation. Is this set in the time period of the original story, or is it a bit different? So what was your take on that?
If you read the script, the original novella, very, very carefully, I believe the evidence is overwhelming that the story is not taking place at the time in which it is published, which was 1871, but rather in the 1840s. And that is the period in which the story of Carmilla is taking place.
Cool. That also made me wonder, this is in like the little teaser trailers you posted, but also in the rough version that you sent me earlier, the sort of the framing device of the radio play. Can you tell me more about why you chose to go that route?
It seemed, well, part of the problem with adapting Carmilla is we cannot help but see it through a modern lens. This, among other things, leads folks to assume that no matter what else it might be, that it is also a profoundly homophobic story. I do not believe it is. First of all, because when it was written in 1871, the word lesbian had barely been even coined by that time, and the word homosexual had not. And frankly, Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu didn't write polemics of this type. I think that more than anything else, the story reads like a Gothic version of a sort of Celtic fairy tale about an uncanny, intimate encounter with a member of the Fae. And the person who has that encounter is never the same. That's how it reads to me. But one of the things you have to look at that we are seeing it we're not the audience of 1871 or 1872. We are the audience of 2022. So in order for it not to be an antique piece, first of all, you have to reimagine certain things in a way to shift things around and not create a false impression by being, for example, perhaps a little too faithful to the original. Now, part of this is the framing device. Now, it seemed to me if you're going to do a radio show, then a radio show has by its very nature things like commercial breaks. And it has an introduction. And it seems to me that addressing the whole business of how people interpret the story could be done in a very entertaining and topical way by having the producing organization, in this case WODN, which is a red flag if you think about it, is be very, very right-wing, to the point where they obviously have no idea what they're producing. Yeah. They literally are looking at this and they're saying, well, it's a very Christian story that's promoting, heteronormative Christian values. That's not it at all. There's this huge disparity. And I had no idea how more incredibly topical that would become by the time we actually got around to putting it on. really, I had no idea as we were going through the workshop process of writing this. It became more and more topical as time went on. To now, I think we are living right now we're living in a particular moment in history when the total disparity between the radio station that's putting on this play and what the play actually contains is magnificently topical, as well as funny. It's very funny. It really gets more and more so. The gentleman who plays the radio announcer, who is the biggest, huggiest teddy bear you've ever met in your life, and is very progressive. I'm quite progressive. He's to the left. They are to the left of me quite a bit, and I'm pretty damn progressive. But and they're playing some, and I loved rehearsing with them because we just got all these little. Because our big thing was to make this hilarious and to raise as many red flags as we possibly could, so people would be going, "What? What did he just say?" And I'll even tell you one that it's a little subtle, is that the character. The character is a he. The character he is mispronouncing the word female. Now, if that isn't a red flag, I don't know what is. It's a subtle thing, but he pronounces the word female, which is so wonderfully bizarre. And so it's this to highlight the themes and the actual reputation and perception of the play, of the story. And for example, in the actual Brittney was sometimes there to see in the workshop process that some people made a certain objection to a certain relationship amongst the other characters. That and one or two people are actually a little bit miffed that I didn't listen to them. I just said, no.
I'm not surprised.
No. Yeah, I'm not saying who it is. It's just that there is a certain relationship other than these two lovely ladies that is kind of important to the whole thing. And some people found it, why is that there? I'll let you decide for yourself.
All right.
Do you have any comments about the one act, about that preview?
I loved it. It ended right as I was just getting super invested in it, and then just ended.
Did you just hate that?
Yeah. But yeah,
the actual version is slightly different. Actually, I ended up listening to one of the scenes and going, "Oh, wait a minute, there's a better version." So I took out the dialogue from one scene and put it a different reading. It was a better one. So
nice,
which you can do.
Yeah.
Audio. I was just like, oh no, that was the wrong one. That was the wrong one. Just my mistake. But anyway, having said that, but yeah, thank you very much. I'm very glad. That is exactly the impact I wanted.
So Dice has said something that I think is very good. I've said before we should simply pronounce female like tamale.
Do it. Have them re-record.
Oh man.
We're not going to hear that now, and I'm okay with it.
Future project.
Cannot be unheard. Cannot be unheard.
Amazing.
Thank you, Dice.
I know. Thank you. I needed that laugh.
Yes, thank you, Dice. On another note, Ria is bringing up saying, you're definitely onto something with the Fae connection, and mentions another story by Le Fanu about a Fae creature who rides in a carriage very similar to the one Carmilla and her companions ride in. I've not read this story, but can you speak about that?
I could not identify that story, although I have heard of it.
But yeah, I agree with that, because have you seen a movie called The Secret of Kells?
The Book of Kells?
It's about the Book of Kells. The movie is called The Secret of Kells.
Is this the animated?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
That is so unbelievably gorgeous.
And
Wonderful.
to Google, I'll go.
Yeah.
I just rewatched that movie last night with some friends who had never seen it before, but there's something about just the ethereal quality of the encounter with the Fae that I get out of the encounter with Carmilla that I had not.
Mhm.
As you were saying that, I was thinking back to The Secret of Kells and the encounter with Aisling, the fairy character in that film, and think, yes,
Mhm.
there's something very similar
Yeah,
there.
I genuinely don't think this was an attempt to make any kind of a homophobic story. I think it was it's about the encounter with something uncanny. And that's primarily what it's about. And in that respect, of course, it is indeed a love story.
The child that went with the fairies. Ooh.
Yes, Ria's saying the story was called The Child That Went with the Fairies, so I know what I'm reading next.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the fun. It's yeah.
I'm glad, Dave, that
Something
you
good
just
to know.
that you just mentioned this is a love story. Just going back to the question we've talked about how our adaptation is different. He made it very clear, like from day one, I feel like this is a love story. This is a horror story. It's a supernatural story. It's a gay story, whatever. But it is a love story. So if there's one, if I may say, like from my point of view, if there's one takeaway from like what you guys can expect, it's a love story.
Wonderful.
And that's why we should care.
Yeah.
It's to grab the heartstrings and
shred them.
strum on
Wow.
or rip them, depending
Shred
on
and strum.
You know what? Forget what I said. That's a lot nicer.
I mean, but that's like such a Carmilla answer, though. You know what I mean?
No, that's
Like-
fine. That's so fine.
Feast.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or maybe Laura might have said pluck.
Yeah. I was like, what would Laura say?
Yeah. And playing right now is about stringed instruments, so that's kind of in my mind.
Yes.
So and I'll also just mention Shadows on the Air. I'm hoping to do other Gothic audio dramas. The next one, I do know what the next one is going to be. It'll be an H.P. Lovecraft short story.
Ooh.
Called, I believe it's called The Haunter in the Dark.
I don't believe I've read that Lovecraft story.
It's about the Church of the Starry Wisdom. Anyway, that's okay. That'll be a short one. I've already outlined it. Hope to do The Great God Pan by Arthur Machen. I am trying to reach the estate of Tanith Lee because she wrote one of the most beautiful vampire stories I've ever read. Actually, she wrote two of the most beautiful ones I've ever read. And there's one in particular I would like to see if I could try my crack at adapting it. It's called Fleur de Feu, or Bite Me Not.
Ooh.
cool.
It's about the title refers to a magical flower.
Even better.
But it only blooms under very special circumstances, but no one knows what those circumstances are.
Scary.
So, and and so that's what I'm wondering. I'm also more long term. I'm rather in love with the idea of doing my own adaptation and major reworking so it becomes coherent of Varney the vampire.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I've already got the notes written down and stuff, and I'm just going, okay, get rid of the junk and just boil down to the good stuff, and then just and then give myself permission to change anything else I want, because it's just such an incoherent mess. But there's something kind of cool there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we'll
my
see.
understanding is that the writer was paid by the word, so it was just like,
Yeah.
here's all of these words.
And there was no editing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this family that's at center, lose one of their siblings just at the end of one chapter, like he's just never mentioned again. It's like a soap opera. You know, Timmy went upstairs to get something and never came down. And we never heard from them again. No one ever referenced him again. So, so that's part of what I'm doing. And like I said, I have adapted Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
And that was done last year.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and you can see it for $5 if you go to fiercebackbone.com. Blub dump. End cube, blatant plug. Yeah, that's called The Wings of Dracula. Is the name of my adaptation.
Cool.
So, but anyway, I also want to really emphasize, since we have the moment, is I am tremendously pleased with the entire cast of Carmilla, but mostly these two who had the biggest roles. And they volunteered for extra rehearsal times to just try and just go over scenes to get it just absolutely perfect. And they kept finding nuances. We just got to the point eventually where we were all sitting down, we were here sitting via Zoom and all this, and figuring out, like, even for these scenes that are not taking place in any space, where we're figuring out, okay, where are you?
Yeah.
Specifically,
Mm-hmm.
what are you physically doing? What are you wearing?
Mhm.
What is that? That came up a couple of times. That was rather interesting. And if the fact that they're blushing doesn't serve as a teaser, I do not know what will. And it's, all sorts of things like that. It was just amazing, that the dedication of going into the details, of going after every line and every word and understanding exactly what they meant, what they were trying to say to each other, the layers, the nuances that they built one right onto another, because their work pushed me as a director. And it was exhilarating, so much so that at our final rehearsal, we almost kind of felt like crying.
I did cry.
Yeah, you cried.
I did cry. Yeah. Well, I mean, as Stepy mentioned earlier, with carrying so much of that Carmilla weight for 200 years that she has, playing Laura and recording some of the scenes together, I almost wanted to say, can you just fucking love me already? Because she has all these, she has all this baggage. And Laura here is just kind of like, wow, you're cute. Let me touch your butt kind of thing. I love you. Yeah, I mean, so I hope, if when you guys listen to it, I hope just imagine me being like, just fucking love me. And then, the lines just come out. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I love that.
So profound. So yeah.
But no, I love that dynamic. I love that. I'm very excited to hear that play out.
Yeah. That was one of the first things Brittney said to me when we began rehearsal, is how thrilled she was that how basically unwaifish Laura is.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the exact words she used, but it was something. She's still that she has so much spirit, and that she is not someone to, in the script, the writing script, I actually have a description that I describe Laura specifically as a wild child who has learned how to pretend to be a doll. And that was sort of the image from which, the rest of the characterization of Laura came forth.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Uh,
And we also I say Stepy and I went into these long conversations with exactly what the nature of a vampire was
ooh.
in this story.
Yeah,
And it was really interesting.
really great conversations about like what kind of powers would Carmilla have or not have? What happened? Like, just great, fantastic, like deep conversations. Like, what happened the night Carmilla turned? What happened the night of the ball when she was 20 years old? Had she been in love before? Had she been in love before she was turned? Like, just so much. There was just so much involved. I promise you guys, this wasn't just like a cool, let's put on a little show. Like, we
Yeah.
really love what we did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Honestly, now that you say that, like, go ahead.
Everyone did that kind of deep dive.
Yeah.
Even in the last rehearsal, suddenly Paul Mackley, who plays Vordenberg, came up with something brand new. Just when I was in here, well, let's try it and just try. He's not on stage very much. I said, just try something, and he came up with something so wild and crazy. I said, okay, we're keeping that because that was so interesting. And everyone, Paul Carpenter, who plays Laura's dad, had this really detailed backstory about exactly why he feels this way. Why is his Englishman in Austria anyway? And all this sort of stuff. And why he sees these things the way. And the whole history of exactly what happened to Laura's mother.
Mm.
Notice how I'm not giving any details. I know how to tease.
No. Yeah. But that does make me very curious. If it's not a spoiler in any way, what abilities does a vampire have in this world? Like, what can Carmilla do?
Stepy, you're up.
Well, she can seduce all the ladies. Most important power. A big part of that discussion was, I don't think it's too much of I don't think it's a spoiler at all. It's clear that Carmilla can leave a locked room at night and then just appear and go, I was in my bedroom this whole time. I don't know what you're talking about. And so, without giving away like that whole scene, just we had a very long discussion about how can she leave locked rooms that are locked, like the outside, inside, like how, So, that's certainly a power she has, and also kind of discussing how, because this was a novella that was written before Dracula, that means that vampirism looks different, because Dracula was one that, from my understanding, introduced garlic and scaling walls like a lizard and really interesting stuff. So understanding that Carmilla came before all that, so what is something that's traditionally associated with vampirism that we're not even like addressing in Carmilla, because that was just not a thing at that time, if that makes sense. So there's not necessarily traditional vampirism in this story, because it's too cool for that, I guess.
Yeah, not Dracula based
Yes.
vampirism.
Also, she can clearly walk in the sun.
Right.
Well, that
right.
yeah, she can. She's languid. She's a little tired. She might need a nap, but she can walk in the sun. Prefers the night, but she can't. That's a big one. That's a big one.
And in tune with the novella, there is something about her that is linked to the cycles of the moon.
Oh, that's a huge part.
Yeah,
very, very, very nice scene about that.
I had no idea there was a cycles of the moon thing at all.
We really explore that.
I'm excited.
For that scene, I got
Just say moon.
Wait, what just happened?
The ladies in question had to summon the imagination of moonlight under certain circumstances. That was a very good part of one of the more powerful scenes. Did we ever decide whether you actually could turn into a cat?
Did we ever land? I think you had me decide and then not say. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, you don't have to say if you don't want.
Or maybe, and I could be remembering that. There's been a few where you were like, which was very wonderful directing. It was like, decide for yourself, and just play it out as that decision. But it was certainly addressed. Like, does she actually turn to a cat? Does she have?
Mhm.
And I think my decision is expressed.
Actually, something I love to say about these two is that every now and then I'd say, just go, make a decision, just go with it. You don't need to tell me. And then listening to it, I knew what their decision was.
Yeah.
And like for Brittney, one of the things was at one point she's playing the harpsichord. And of course, she wasn't really playing a harpsichord.
Harpsichord.
Brittney, who has a harpsichord? And do you know how to play one? So we had to decide when she stopped playing the harpsichord in terms of the dialogue. She decided, and I could listen. I said, "You stopped then," and she said, "Yeah," because I could hear her.
Mhm.
Because they were both of them, and this is true of the entire cast. They were so totally in the moment that it was real. You could hear the sound of it, and it was so real. With that before the sound effects, and oh my god, once I added the sound effects.
So we haven't really heard. We've heard a few like rough cuts with sound effects, and like, oh my god, it elevates it so much with the sound. It's gonna be good. Also, if I may, I did see someone ask, did she still randomly enjoy hot chocolate in this version? And I want to really point that out because you guys know, like, so like, I'm sorry if this sounds really douchey, but like to get into character, I would drink hot chocolate. I would drink European sipping chocolate to like get into character. Like I really would. And I also had, I don't know if I told you guys this, I had a hot cocoa candle that I would burn when we would record to really get like,
Wow.
yeah, I guess I didn't tell you guys that. Yeah, like
No.
so I really appreciated that detail of Carmilla. Like she's this languid lady who walks amongst like the lime groves or whatever, and then sips hot chocolate at 1 p.m. Like, who is Carmilla? It's just detail to me. I was like, I'm just gonna like drink a lot of hot chocolate, and then I drink a lot of hot chocolate throughout November, December, which is great, but also it was a lot.
Didn't you also get a scent?
Yep.
Yeah.
Should have brought it. Dang. I had a perfume oil called Carmilla. And I just found it. I was like, I'm gonna try that, and it smells lovely. And it's like from an indie perfume house called Alchemia, and they based it on Carmilla, the character, and it smells really great. And okay, I also did find just a few weeks ago another perfume called Mircalla, Countess of Karnstein. So I am wearing that right now, and I smell amazing. And one of the ingredients listed is apparently Styrian herbs. So this has become a random segue into like indie perfume houses, but it's really fun. And there's at least 2 out there named after Carmilla or Mircalla. So
yeah, no, I love that. And I almost made myself a mug of hot chocolate for the stream, and I'm regretting not doing it now. But
it's the things we don't do that we regret.
It is. I was just like, it's 20 minutes before the stream. I don't have time, and I didn't make it. I should have made it.
You can make it when you're listening. You can drink it while you're listening to it.
Absolutely. And of course, you absolutely will be the first, last I checked, you will almost certainly be the first one to hear the whole thing all the way through because you joined the Patreon.
I did.
So everyone can hear Act 1 on March 1st, but you have to be a member of Patreon to hear the other 4 acts.
Nice.
And it's only $5 a month, and you can cancel anytime. So come on. And so that's my thing to let people know about that, and that's why I'm so pleased to hear that Act 1 ended on that.
Yeah,
I just answered that.
I know. That's why I'm highlighting it. I'm like, I want to say hi to Cole because he's a friend. He runs the Queer Horror Freaks group on Facebook, which is a really fun place. But
lovely.
He wanted to know
Cole,
where it's available.
It's patreon.com/shadows on the air. Okay.
Yeah.
And yes, I hope very, very much that you enjoy it. I want, that's the thing. I want people to be moved by this. I want people to just, I want to grab their heart. I want them to laugh. I want them to cry. I want them to feel fear sometimes, and not necessarily fear of Carmilla. And I think these two can break your heart. And as I keep saying, people, that you're going to be really impressed. You're going to be really impressed. Everyone. The cast was actually amazing because of Zoom. One of the governesses is in Ireland. So that's an 8-hour difference.
Yeah.
And she showed up.
Yeah.
And
then of course there's the Romani woman, Florica, who is that character. The actress is from Russia. Always felt bad anytime I had to have her for rehearsal because I knew, we had to, it was going to be some ungodly hour. One time she just contacted me and says, "Am I needed for the first part of the rehearsal? Because I'd rather not get up before 4 in the morning." And I said, "Of course, we'll do yours later." So, and then she just, did. So it was just,
lots of dedication among the cast.
Yeah.
The dedication was amazing. Yeah. I was, at the auditions, I was so knocked off. I'll tell you something though. I don't think Brittney and Stepy know this. But initially, something happened with Brittany's schedule and she was not able to show up to the audition. It wasn't her fault. It was something to do with work. So initially, I was going to cast someone else as Carmilla and ask Stepy to be Laura.
I didn't know this. Wait, we need an actor because I was saying that I thought. Sorry, really quick aside. I had mentioned to you guys. I always thought if I was going to be cast, I would be Laura. Okay, sorry. Continue your story. That just blowing my mind right now.
Now the person I was casting as who did a wonderful audition, and I asked them to portray Carmilla. Then the person gave it a hard thought. That person is non-binary and is actually dealing with some bipolar issues. And they came back and said to me, "I'm sorry. I think the more I think about it, actually being cast as a female character right now would actually not be good for me." And I wrote back to them saying, "I am, of course, disappointed, but your priorities are spot on. You take care of you." Then I was looking at the other auditions, and then I called up, I called up Brittney because I worked with her a bunch of times. And I asked, and I said, "Okay. No thing is, okay, I only had 2 possibilities for Carmilla. And Stepy was the other one. So, Stepy. And now I don't have a Laura. I have some very good actors, but I don't have someone who's really a Laura." So then I contacted Brittney because I'd worked with her before. Like I said, we belong to the same theater company. She's been in 2 readings of mine. And I said, "Would you be interested in taking the lead?" Which is a big chunk because Laura's in almost every scene. So that's something that happened. The auditions were a very interesting process. And actually, it was the governesses that kind of had the widest variety for me to choose from.
Very cool.
And so I eventually settled on these 2 because I thought, no, these 2 have the most interesting dynamic. I can see them together. And I think that came true. I think that absolutely came true. Those 2 are so interesting.
Yeah.
And Paul, he was a pretty easy choice for Laura's father.
He's so good.
Because yes, because he had just the right kind of theatricality and charm that could also come across as foolishness or fear, or something like this. And then, the other Paul, oh my God, he should play Emperor Palpatine. He really should.
Seriously.
Yes. He plays Vordenberg, and yeah. And Florica just did this lovely thing because she was so nice. I want to say, what can I cast her in? Well, Florica. Olga should play Florica because I can't justify taking her, the time zone and all this. So, and that's basically how it, broke down. So that's how the auditions. Because I always have more people who are wonderfully talented, and then you have to come down to very nuancey little things. And say it's because Laura needs certain qualities, Carmilla needs certain qualities. And I said I had 2 people who could play Carmilla, and one of them dropped out. So the person who could play both Carmilla and Laura becomes Carmilla. And then I asked Brittney, and it worked out spectacularly well. As you have begun to hear. Waiting into Act 2. Whoa.
I did not know that whole story. Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, why would I tell you that during rehearsal? That's just a distraction.
I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, and by the way, that actor who I initially cast is a very good actor.
Mm-hmm.
I almost cast them, Brittney, in Sea Griffins, but as Francis.
Oh, yes.
You did.
I know.
This is not someone you know.
Oh.
Someone I would considered casting as Francis, but the fact of the matter, this person is too young. This person looks younger than you do, and that would have been weird. So instead, I cast V. And V, of course, knocked it out of the park, as we all know.
Did. You guys should watch Secret Friends.
They.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. I sometimes forget. Yeah. V just announced, by the way, they now use they, he.
Okay.
Just FYI. Magnificent actor. Also, I hope they get back to doing some burlesque here in LA. They do this wonderful vampire burlesque, and sometimes it was an absinthe-based burlesque up in an absinthe bar up in Burbank. So anyway, there's that little thing. But yeah, so that's it's a little bit of what was going on in the planning of all this.
Yeah.
I just really, the entire cast is just, I felt incredibly happy once I had the cast together, and I only got happier as rehearsals went on.
Same.
Really, it's just great experience.
It's so
As you can see, I'm going on about because I'm still trying to hold on to it. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I would say it's so refreshing, like when everybody's really committed to the work and is really good, and like everybody's just in it.
Oh
Everybody.
Hey, good morning. Okay. That was fun. Everybody's awake.
I am awake now. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna take over the stream now. Now I'm entering.
Okay.
We're just talking about how much we loved what we did.
How much what?
How much we loved what we did, and how it was so refreshing for me. Like sometimes you're part of projects that it's a bit of a slog, and you're like, oh, okay. Not the case here. We all love Carmilla, so we know that all you watching love Carmilla too. And it's just gonna be a love fest. We did it from love. We did this project from a place of deep compassion and wanting to tell this story really well. So yeah, that's my little mushiness.
And it shows. And it showed in every every line.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's.
And it really did leave me just wondering, thinking, I wish I could expand this. I wish I had like a 9 episode thing on Netflix.
We definitely had more than a few conversations about if this were a web series, we could totally go down this.
Yeah.
And it was so fun.
Yeah, but then it would also be very tricky. We'd have to get everybody in the we have to get in the sets, a good location.
Yeah.
No.
Just go to Styria. Why
not? Nothing difficult about that these days.
No, it's Carmilla's powered to transport. Super easy.
Yeah.
By the way, a little while ago, I saw somebody say that they want to brag that they have a new baby cousin and her name is Carmilla.
Oh, yeah.
That is amazing.
How splendid. How splendid.
New baby cousin is already primed for a great life.
Literally.
Congratulations to that baby. I am jealous of that baby. It's okay. That's really cool. I don't think I know anybody named Carmilla, but outside of the novella, but it's a great name. Great choice. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, hope everything's okay.
We're playing something, responding to something Karnstein. The Karnstein said, yeah, in pre-Dracula vampire stories, the full moon was very important.
Yeah.
This was something earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about how important there's a scene in our version where the moonlight is very much addressed and very significant. Like what other pre-Dracula stories is the moonlight considered very significant in? I'm thinking of the poem.
Sorry?
The poem Christabel. I feel like there's a mention of the moonlight.
Ah.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in Varney, as well as The Vampire by John Polidori, the vampire was resuscitated by the rays of the full moon.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They took him to the top of the hill or something, right? Is that
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since I read
Although
that.
in Varney, it's that he tried to kill himself by jumping over the sea, but the water rejected him. He drowned, but then the water came up, and then people pulled this well-dressed gentleman out of the water. And then he woke up, and that was the last thing he wanted to do.
Right. Yeah, it's been a while since I read that one. That Varney Vampire is fantastic. And The Vampire by John Polidori. Like, everything that came out of that cabin, Frankenstein, Vampire, I feel like there's probably some poems that came out from Byron. That, whatever year that was, 1812? 18...
I was looking here at the different, because I've had my thing set up, so I was looking at private chat instead of comments. And now I'm looking at the comments, which are so cool. Yeah. It's a bunch of them from Karnstein.
Yeah. Love.
Very, very
amazing name. Amazing name.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm just like now living in the comments. I'm like just now talking to people in the comments.
I am nervous to open up the YouTube to comment. I sound like a grandma. The YouTube. You heard me. Because like I don't want there to be like the double feedback audio thing.
Yeah. Obviously, we don't want that.
Yeah. Well, I'll give it a try in a minute. But if you hear it,
they just asked to put to talk about I don't know, something. They asked about links to like your YouTube channel or follow you. I think that the links to follow us on anything is in the description below. So you guys can go in and hop in and DM us. Well, I mean, you could DM me. I don't know about these two, but okay, we're open to combo.
You can also the YouTube channel is simply called Shadows on the Air. And actually, approximately 1 hour ago, the last trailer to Carmilla, the radio play, premiered at 6:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. 1 week from tonight will be a video will open up that will be the an interview of answers a series of questions by Brittney.
Oh yeah, I did do that. Yeah. I do have to hop off soon, ladies and gents and theys. So with that, we'll just
Okay.
chat a bit more. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Caitlin. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. If he's on campus right
Fire
now, yeah.
alarm.
Sure. That happened all
That
the time.
happens all the time.
Why does that happen all the time? Like, I guess it's a good safety thing, but also, why is it such a quintessential college campus experience? That's strange.
There's also something. Yeah. Also, sometimes students get drunk and pull the alarm.
Oh my God, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's their idea of a joke.
Yeah. College is
It's fascinating and it's interesting, but it's not when we're at our smartest.
No, I'm sure it's Saturday night. I'm sure that's what happened.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. But I mean, I can tell you what if I ever do like the original the screenplay outline that I wrote, basically had the idea that that in that one Carmilla is destroyed and Laura feels it.
Ooh.
And then it jumps forward to years later when her father has died, and everybody and the castle is being, locked up and moved and all this, and Laura's getting ready to leave. And what she does is she still has the portrait.
Of course she does.
And she goes to the tree that they had spent a great deal of time under. And this is near sunset. And she puts the portrait under the tree and she looks up and there's the carriage that brought Carmilla there. Is there. It's right there. And the door opens. And Laura goes towards to go in.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, so.
Oh, amazing.
So I thought I'd share that because besides I'm a show off. So
very cool.
Yeah, but also frankly I also want to say thing is that Stepy, I am very, very glad that when the time came you got to play Carmilla. I'm very, very happy because I thought you did a wonderful, wonderful job. And the fact that you wanted to do it so badly is Jacques Le Fanu. Yes. Robert Eggers is planning on remaking Nosferatu.
Ooh.
With Anya Wolf something.
I haven't heard of this, but that was
She was in The Witch and One Night in Soho. I know. And Emma. Yeah. She's going to star in it.
Very cool.
Yeah, they've been hoping to do that for quite a while, and evidently the latest thing was they were saying, yeah, looks like certain this is going to happen.
I'm down. Yeah, Nosferatu is a hell of a movie. So
yeah, so and actually, this would be the third remake of Nosferatu. Anya Taylor-Joy. Yeah, thank you. Because there was, of course, Werner Herzog did a version with Klaus Kinski and Isabella Gianni.
Oh.
And there is one that's still in post-production with Doug Jones as Nosferatu.
Oh, what a tragedy! That he's the perfect Nosferatu. Are you kidding me?
Oh, this production is. They also did a remake of, and he was in The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where he plays Cesare, the somnambulist.
Okay.
And hi, Martin.
Hi.
So what they did for Caligari, they're also doing for Nosferatu, and this is one of the reasons it's so complex in terms of post-production. Okay, they filmed it; it's with sound and everything, but they did it on a green screen. they're putting the original film behind it and then digitally removing the actors from the original.
Interesting.
And they did this with The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And now they're doing it with Nosferatu.
All righty,
And
beautiful
friend-
people.
And
Sorry. Yeah. What do you mean? Okay. Eye of the beholder. I have new eyes. I'm gonna let you all go. It was such a pleasure to meet and talk to everybody. Thank you again so much, and it was nice to see you both, David and Stepy and Martin. It was
Martin,
amazing.
I hope you're okay.
Yeah, seriously. But I'm gonna jump. Thank you very much again, and I'll see you guys soon, hopefully. Bye.
Bye.
I am
Right.
happy to stay on till Martin gets back.
Sure.
Since everything's okay. Although I'm an old lady, and if it's like 10 p.m., I'll be like, I'm probably getting ready for bed. But I hope it won't be that long. I'm kind of curious in the chat and between you and me, David, what everyone's favorite aspect of Carmilla is. Is there a favorite character or a favorite? Somebody already mentioned the hot chocolate, and I agree. I'm really curious, like what for the people watching, like what interests you about Carmilla? What's your favorite part about it? Is it the fact that it's a lesbian love story, especially for the time it was written? Is it the fact that Carmilla drinks hot chocolate? Is it the fact that there's really interesting the whole cat nightmare thing? I don't know. I would love to hear what people think. For me, I think it was all the above. I don't know, David, what interested you when you first encountered
Me?
Carmilla? Yeah.
I didn't. I was very young when I read it first, and at first I thought it was this isn't a strong plot, but I kept coming back to it. And I think ultimately the reason that I came back to it increasingly was the ambiguity and the unanswered questions, and the fact that I kept feeling that there's more to this, that there are hints. It's like you're looking at in this room that has a lot of curtains and a lot of alcoves, and there's something in those alcoves, and some of those curtains aren't leading to alcoves, they're leading to hallways and maybe rooms. There was so much there, and I kept, oh, okay, cool.
Wow, that's
Someone's
amazing.
writing 1,000 words, cool.
Love
And
it.
so, and yes, it did, to be honest, part of my particular makeup is in some way, I've never been, I'm not saying that I'm in any sense transgender, but in a certain sense, I'm not comfortable with being a male. And so I find the idea of love between two women, and also because I've always felt of an outsider. So that kind of thing has always appealed to me. And so I liked that idea. I liked that ambiguity and trying to figure out, okay, what did these two people feel for each other? What was Carmilla's real motives for doing anything?
Wow.
When she said she loved Laura, did she mean it? And then as I got older and older, I kept wondering, I mean, you bet probably I'd say here, when she says these things and Laura goes, oh, well, I just backed off. And after a while, I just didn't believe it. I think she was lying. And the more I read it, the more I get a sense of there's so much there. And so much of what I'm reading is, it's not only interesting, it's in a very real sense compelling.
Yeah.
About who these people are and what is going on. And I know part of it is because I had an enormous empathy with Laura, because I was intensely unhappy and very lonely growing up. And my father was not evil, but he was remote. We were friends, but we weren't close. I did feel that reading, going into the library or spending time by myself was how I was spending my time, because I didn't have friends when I was a child. And there was some, the echoes of things like that are all touched me.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. That was part of what really just got to me. And it was, and plus, of course, I do like vampire stories, because vampire stories do embody certain tensions and conflicts that I feel very powerful about. And I'm continuing to dive into what those things are. And so, okay. And that's basic. That's okay. And that's enough of an essay from me. Karnstein, I would certainly love to get a chance to read your essay. If you're, let us know when it's published, when it's up.
Yeah, I would love to read that. And circle back to something. By the way, I have a dog here, and she started making some noises. So if you're hearing some weird background noises, it's the dog. I think she's having a nightmare. I'm sorry if that's weird. Oh, baby. Okay. Maybe she's dreaming about a vampire. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. That like just Laura's childhood being very isolated, she's away from her home country. She
doesn't have a home country.
Yeah.
She's never been to England.
That's right. She hasn't, huh? So there's just so much there. I think that really struck me too when I first read Carmilla, just how Laura's state of being, that, if you can, sad to say, if you can feel that, you can really feel that. If you can relate, you can really relate. And yeah, it's, I think, very clear in the novella how it's written out, what her feeling is, and how that glimmer of hope that is Berta stashed away, and then a new glimmer of hope and something very extreme known as Carmilla. Carmilla herself is very much, I wish I had the ability to like pop it up on the screen, but I can't. But Carmilla herself is very much a representation of taboo desires, whether that's same gender desire, gender nonconformity, kink, or what have you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's actually what I really like about Carmilla.
She's the other, one way or another.
She's the other. Such a good way to put it. She's newness, otherness, strangeness, and I think it's fair to say that I speak for a lot of this community when I say we all kind of relate to that, or we all really see ourselves in that. We're all very attracted to that, and that is why I will always stand Carmilla. Okay. She's great because what she stands for, and she's compelling enough on her own, but she's so much more than just who she is. She's that thing, a person that you want, even though, or perhaps because you're not allowed. And you know what? Brittney plays that very well as Laura.
Yeah.
I would say. I would say that comes across very, very well. So, yeah, I think that's going to become very clear.
I mean, I know she said she was a little embarrassed about saying the line, but she just recounts at one time that she, as a child, in my version, it's not in the novella, she climbed up onto the roof and then sang with the gargoyles. Sang to the gargoyles.
That's in your version?
That's in my version. That's not in the original.
That's really badass, though. Cool. That's really...
Well, see, there's the question. Jacques Le Fanu, I think that's a very interesting part of the ambiguity. Who are these people? In our version, we at least answered it partially. But for example, who are the people who are running the carriage? Who are these people? Who was that in the novella? We do not know who this woman who calls herself Carmilla's mother is, and we see another face in the carriage. And I know Maven of the Eventide saw this as evidence of racism, of having this ugly black woman staring out of the carriage. I don't think it was meant as racism. I just think it was meant as something unusual and exotic. So.
Post the link I sent you in the chat. Let's see. I will try sending that over. Post it in the YouTube comment. I just want to make sure.
Oh, I think that he means the StreamYard chat.
Yeah, I've got it copied right now. I just want.
Because, Martin is on Caitlin's phone.
Right. Let's see. Oh, right. Okay, I will do that, and we'll see if that works.
Yeah. So, Jacques, I think that's one of the ambiguities. We don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know who those people are, except that it only occurs to me that there are two older women associated with Carmilla because there are two older women associated with Laura.
Mm.
So it makes them more of a mirror to each other.
Yeah, there's a lot of mirroring.
Yeah. There's a lot of tensions in this story between the old and the young, between the male and the female, between the new and the old-fashioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I posted the link, but I think there's a bit of a delay, so it's on its way.
Okay.
By the time you hear this, maybe it'll already be there in the future.
So yeah.
Camilla's great. It's
There's so much there. There's really so much in it. Actually, when you read it, after a while, you start thinking of Dracula as this kind of simple story.
I love that simple story. I love Carmilla more than Dracula. I like Dracula. There's some people like stupid. I'm like, we don't need to go there. But like,
oh, I didn't say that.
No, I know you didn't. I know you did. But like, I've heard that before. Like, I don't know, people try to make contrarians. Like, no, like Dracula's like respectable. Like, let's respect it. But Carmilla's just fucking interesting. Like, wow, there's layers, and yeah.
I have I'm pontificating again. Beware, this happens when you let me talk. I have a way of looking at writing, a paradigm that I think of as 4 elements of storytelling, mostly playwriting, that I call pact. And they are plot, atmosphere, character, and theme. And I tend to think most writers focus on one or more of these primarily. And right now we tend to be encouraging people to just work on plot first and foremost. And I think Dracula is an example of something that's very plot oriented, whereas Carmilla is very, very oriented towards character and atmosphere.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. It's very atmospheric, and the characters are standouts.
Yeah, so it's not about the plot, although it might be about some very interesting themes, in my opinion. That's how I approached it. The Girl from the Other Side.
Just really quick,
I do not know this. I've
been pasting that link into the YouTube comments, and I guess it's not showing up for some reason, and I don't know why. I don't know if David, you want to give it a try? I've tried putting it in the private chat here.
He said we were coming back.
Oh, okay. I guess it works then. Cool. Sorry, I just wanted to get that out there. Like, I'm trying to help. No, I haven't heard of Girl from the Other Side either, but just that name is really intriguing. So please let us know more about. Is that a movie? Is that a book? Is that a series? Is that a what? What is it?
Yes, we'd love to hear more. Please.
Yeah, I'm not recommendations of that. That was pretty much his directing, by the way. It was give me more. No, it wasn't. It was like so much more amazing. But sometimes it felt like give me Carmilla, give me Laura. It is an 11-volume manga series involving the Fae. Well, we've got to all drop what we're doing and read that.
Yeah, because this. Yeah. I am very much looking forward to, I mentioned V, who played Frances in Sea Griffins. Well, in the very first theater adaptation of Carmilla I ever wrote.
Sorry, so apparently someone popcorn. That
that would do it, wouldn't it?
I do popcorn all the goddamn time. Oh my gosh. I would not. Good thing I'm not in college.
So, V, who played Frances in Sea Griffins, also played Carmilla in the first play version of Carmilla that I ever wrote.
Yes, yes.
Well, you know Vanessa Kate.
Mhm.
And actually, here's the nice touch. For that production, they wore this cape.
Very cool. Yeah, so glad you're back.
Yeah.
Hi.
Someone
Martin,
burnt
welcome
popcorn.
back.
Wow.
Well, that will do it. That will do it. Yes. Oh, speaking of manga and the like, or an anime, allow me to say that I find the Carmilla in Castlevania boring.
Not familiar.
She's not really Carmilla, but I
know.
love Castlevania Carmilla as like a different character, just this haughty villainess.
Okay, but I mean, she's uninteresting to my mind compared to the Carmilla.
No, that's completely fair, especially compared to Carmilla. She's very uninteresting, but I think she's a lot of fun.
I know there's like a big fandom for Castlevania Carmilla and for the web series. Both of those I intentionally avoided because I didn't want it to influence my portrayal. But now that I have no excuse, so I plan to watch both of those and many more Carmilla adaptations.
I find most.
Yeah, please.
I was going to say the female vampire who people have mentioned to me about writing is to me the most difficult because I don't see very much interesting really there. Is Erzsébet Karnstein, now Erzsébet Báthory, the Blood Countess, because she's just a serial killer, and serial killers are losers.
Yeah.
they're really, really uninteresting losers for the most part. You look at their life, they're nothing like Hannibal Lecter. They're more like Ted Bundy. Just half-educated jerk on an epic scale of jerkiness, which isn't interesting. It's just appalling. So so I doubt I will ever write anything about Erzsébet Báthory. I just don't find her very interesting. Hi, creepy Cody.
Hi, Cody.
Oh, awesome name.
Yeah, but that's just that's me. That's where I'm coming from. So it's, but people have asked me to write a sequel to Carmilla a bunch of times. I see Stepy going.
Ria from Karnstein has written a sequel to Carmilla and is releasing it in segments right now called Carmilla's Return. It is a comic book adaptation.
I like that. I know I'm following you on Instagram, so I'm definitely going to be looking for that info. That sounds.
I'm moving on to. I'm beginning to be more and more involved in Instagram, and I will look. I will hit you up for that.
Yeah.
I have only seen one. I've seen two comic book versions. Of Carmilla. One which was very straightforward, and the other was at least interesting. And that includes a continuation of the idea of Carmilla, that she escaped and all this. I also heard about, this is another reason I wrote this, is because I went and listened to every radio version of Carmilla I could find.
I still need to do that.
We did listen to that came out last year, and it was like, my opinion, it was well done, like audio wise and acting wise, stellar. But they did the thing where they made Carmilla a very one-note villain, and they made Laura very much like, oh, the man will save me, cool. And yikes. That's my personal opinion.
Hobbs horror. Okay, it's kind of hard because, all right. You might want to go to my website, which is davidmacdowellblue.com. My middle name is McDowell, like, the actor, MacDowell. You can also might find me on Facebook, and my Twitter is D MacDowell Blue. I really need to actually have, I forget even what my Instagram handle is. So,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
oh yeah, those photos are, I've seen those photos that Karnstein's referring to.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I did take some photos as Carmilla.
Those were cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really fun. The first set we did, I did back in November in the midst of recording, and I went to a graveyard because, of course, and it's the graveyard where Abigail Folger is buried. If you're familiar with the Manson murders, and so we went to that place and took some really fun photos there. And then just a few weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago, I decided I found another outfit. I was like, I want to be Carmilla again, because I think we had just wrapped, and I was like, I miss Carmilla. I want to take photos. So I went to another mausoleum graveyard place that a friend of mine was like, well, like I feel like you would like this place anyway. And then it was just like, have you dressed with Carmilla? I was like, okay, and it was the perfect location for it. So thank you very much. Those photos were really fun to do, and happy to associate them with Carmilla publicity and all. And it was just fun to be her again. Can you tell, like, I love Carmilla so much? Like, I want to be her. I want to.
There's another possibility. There's another possibility that I should mention to you, Stepy.
What's that?
Because you've read the script. You've read the complete script, right?
Yes.
And it is also designed to be done on live stage.
Yes. Don't tease me.
Prologue, with a prologue at the radio station and epilogue at the radio station. Now, that is another possibility of putting it on, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
That would not be a radio show. That would be a live radio show, as it were. You'd have microphones and all this. And I'm just saying, I think you're in the Bay Area.
Right now I am. Yeah, I did. I was located in LA. I did move back home because pandemic. I grew up. I went to SF State. I fully plan to return to LA.
Okay. Well, you see, now that's always a possibility. And personally, I think Carmilla would be a better choice for a Halloween play than Dracula, because everyone does Dracula.
But yeah, of course.
And for also, it's a little long for, but might work for the Hollywood Fringe Festival.
Yeah. If you guys are not familiar, the Hollywood Fringe Festival, minus the last few years, happens around June of every year in Hollywood. And because you think of Hollywood as a film and TV town, which it obviously is, but there's an amazing live theater scene.
Yeah, there's over 300 theater companies here.
And like that's how I, before the pandemic, was making my bread and butter, was theater in LA. And you wouldn't think that, like, I don't do much work in film and television as an actor. I do it in theater in LA. And every summer there's the Fringe Festival, and it's just like this smorgasbord of live theater, and it's meant to be fringe. It's meant to be things that are a little weird or a little quite untraditional. And so, yeah, Carmilla would fit right in.
Sure.
For all reasons. And yes, who doesn't want to wander around dressed as Carmilla? I mean, if I could every day, I guess I could. But why not, right? I have the fake fangs. I have the fake blood. Like, let's go, right?
I try to dress as some form of vampire every day. That is
a beautiful life motto.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, that's amazing. I feel that.
Yep. Even if it's just a black T-shirt and shades, and I'm a Lost Boys vampire today. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, even if it doesn't have to be like all out, but know what your vibe is. You're giving out that Lost Boys vibe, and that's what counts. I respect that. I greatly respect that.
By the way, I strongly recommend, if you haven't, to watch Maven of the Eventide's review of The Lost Boys, which is fantastic and incredibly entertaining. We're describing it as the film that 80s more than any other 80s movie ever 80'd. Yes.
Yeah, I love the Maven's videos in general. I just watched her review of John Carpenter's Vampires, which was delightful.
Yeah. But she didn't like my play version of Carmilla.
Oh.
Your live play version?
The live play version, yeah. Someone commissioned her to do it. I personally feel I thought she looked at it from the wrong lens. And and certain things that I don't think she quite got. And as a result, I think, and this was a learning experience from my point of view. But for example, she said something because ultimately she saw this as, I mean, this is the way she put it. She said, this is a man writing a play about a girl getting raped and liking it. And well, I don't see it that way. And of course, so, and she also found, so that particular play version is set in Nazi Germany. And I portray the idea that, that I tried to make the point is that I was wanting to make a question of the nuance of evil. Is that someone, Carmilla kills people because she has to. And the Nazis are killing lots more people because they want to. And there's a difference there. And in my version, Berta committed suicide to get away from her uncle. And Carmilla helped her do it. And so part of her objection was that what is empowering about that? Well, it's not empowering. It's about a tragedy. It's about the fact that, what do you expect her to do? Overthrow Hitler? She's an 18-year-old girl in Nazi Germany. What do you think she can do? Evil is not always defeatable just by being plucky. That's that's hard. And I'll grant you that, that evidently that play did not succeed on some level because it got this reaction. But then you live and learn. I think actually this is a superior version for an adaptation of Carmilla.
And in this adaptation, we did have discussions about Carmilla killing out of necessity, and kind of like I think we really wanted to unpack. I've said this like over and over because I think it was just so important to me, like to us, like the idea of not just being evil for evil's sake. Like, why does she kill? And without spoiling anything, there's a great piece of dialogue between me and Laura, Kamei and Laura, where she's discussing. She kind of goes into that, the idea like of death and natural death, and versus like how many people die all the time. And I want to, you see what I'm talking about. It took me a while to like.
Natural.
Death is natural.
I was just editing that scene the other day.
Yeah, it's a great scene, and I feel like this was clear in the process. I didn't. It took me a while as like an actor to understand that scene. I remember not really getting and just having to ask him like, what am I really saying in this scene? And we really had to unpack it. And okay. So it's a really, I think it's like a really interesting take on, like, you as somebody who has to kill versus somebody who wants to. Big difference.
Thank you for your comment, Karnstein. And Hobbs Horror. John Carpenter's Vampires is silly but fun. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I mean, there's some nice things in it. Ditto, and agreeing with Creepy Cody also. Just wanted to say that. Thank you. Yeah, it's also about Maven. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with her about everything. Well, I don't agree with anybody about everything. So, and likewise. So, hey, fine.
That's how humans work.
Yeah, it's so. Yeah, but it's yeah, it's one of the. Yeah, I can go on like I mean. This is one of my very, very favorite vampire stories, and I really like vampire stories. So. And I've done a serious deep dive. I even edited the annotated Carmilla and wrote over 400 footnotes, answering any question that I thought might come up. And as a result, I went through that story so many times. I just have so many. And actually, a little plug, that's available on Amazon. The annotated Carmilla, and one of the people who wrote the foreword to it is Taliesin of Taliesin Meets the Vampires.
I know what I'm buying next.
Cha-ching. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
book-
I've always seen Carmilla as a reluctant vampire,
Oh, definitely.
and very lonely. And why wouldn't she be?
Mhm. Yeah, I really wanted to portray that, and I hope I did it justice. Yeah, she's. I said it at the beginning. This like there were so many times where I was crying, like after doing a scene or even during a scene, because there's I just feel for her so much. Oh my god. Oh yeah, getting it right now. Like there's Camilla. Like there's a lot of tragedy and pathos there. Mhm.
Oh, great Hobbs horror. Thank you.
She has that scene. So I'm going through the comments now. Book Carmilla definitely seems to hate the fact that she has to kill. And she has that scene where Laura sees the funeral of one of her presumed victims and has a big freak out about it. Yes, she
Uh-huh.
does. In our adaptation, too. Yes, that was a really fun one. That was a good one. That one also took me a while. Yeah.
I think every major scene from the novella is in this version, just about.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think.
I think so, too.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you have the dream, the peddler, the funeral, the sleepwalking, the dream, the second dream.
Mhm. Laura falling ill.
Yeah. No, we didn't have the doctor visiting and saying and trying to say what's wrong. That's, I think, the only thing that's really missing.
Mhm.
And we eventually have, Spielsdorf and Vordenberg showing up and stuff. And then the extra stuff that, yeah, would be Bit. God, that sounds familiar.
Bit is really fun. It came out in 2019. It's the main character is transgender, is portrayed by
now I know the
main,
one you mean. Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Gang of feminist vampires killing predators in the streets of LA. Kind of a gender swapped Lost Boys deal.
Okay.
It's kind of campy, but it's really fun, and it's really kind of sharp. It's not perfect, but I really enjoy it.
Sounds really awesome.
It's fun.
Cool.
And there's a whole sequence where one of the vampires goes into her backstory with the master, presumably like the Dracula character that sired all of these vampires. But the whole thing, her whole backstory is set in the 70s. So the whole thing is set to Rasputin, the disco song, the whole sequence with the master vampire.
I'm here for this.
It's
very
fun.
much. Yeah. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Karnstein, we did keep the peddler, although the peddler has been reimagined in, I think, a very interesting way.
Yeah. A charm that wards off vampires, I'll take it. I like that scene a lot too. That was really fun to do. So many. I mean, they all work.
I do have a concept for a vampire movie that I tried to show to a friend of mine. A friend of mine is directing a movie called The Damnation of Dracula. It's now in post-production. And it's a very, very, what little I know of it, it's a very different take. Very different. And this is a gentleman, he did, he was in the first reading of my version of Dracula, and he agreed to do it because he said, I'd finally written a version of Jonathan Harker that he liked. Because to me, I always thought that was one of the most mysterious things about the novel, is why is the most interesting woman in the novel interested in this guy? And then I realized, oh no, if you just look at the first part of the book, then you start seeing something else. And you see and you start seeing a structural problem in the whole thing, which I fixed. But the whole thing is that, to me, okay, real quick, how does Harker survive? Dracula's castle. Come on, this crowd should know this.
Forgotten. Nope, I forgot. I thought I had it and I didn't.
He climbed out the window.
He did go out the window. I knew that.
Down
See?
Let's say that.
cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Down a cliff, and then he survived at least a couple of weeks in the Transylvanian wilderness avoiding wolves.
He's the brawny man.
Okay, that bespeaks to me first of someone who's very brave, is very tough, has a will of steel, and must be very, very shrewd on his feet. And suddenly you're going, okay, now this guy sounds really interesting. So for my version, one of the things I hold the idea that, like, instead of thinking of him as this very popular English clerk, just sort of from London, I was thinking of him from a hard scrabble farm in Yorkshire. That, lifting himself up to become a solicitor by his own will. That makes somebody, okay, now I see why Mina likes him. Now this suddenly becomes this strong, interesting person who is, quite possibly the only.
That's the real answer, right there.
That's the real answer.
But you see, in my head, I didn't cast Keanu Reeves.
Of course.
I did cast him. I did cast a movie star in my head for Jonathan Harker at first, and that was Daniel Radcliffe.
I can see that.
I see it.
But then I reimagined him. And I said, no, I don't want someone who's middle class. I want someone who's lower class, someone from the north of England, someone who is this upstart, as it were, which puts in more conflict with people like Lord Godalming and Dr. Seward, because he's socially below them. And therefore, I thought of someone else to play the part, who is not as good an actor, honestly, I think, as Daniel Radcliffe. But he looks, he has a very different feel. And that is the gentleman who played Jon Snow.
Okay.
In Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've only seen the first few episodes of Game of Thrones.
Someone who's much more tough. Someone who comes across as much more tough and down to earth. And so, yeah, that was part of my whole thing. So Seb did this, and so he's now working on this thing called The Damnation of Dracula, where Dracula is much more of a almost a Wendigo figure.
Oh, those things are so creepy. Oh. I was first introduced to that through Until Dawn. I'm sure somebody in the community knows that game. Yeah. Man, those things are fucking freaky. I'm sorry. Oh, you just said it. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. Noting the chat, I'm no way. I adore the film Bram Stoker's Dracula, but I do think that Keanu Reeves, who is by all accounts a really great guy, we have this problem is that if he's right up against a bunch of real English actors and he's putting on an English accent, it's a problem. You can say it, he's trying too hard to have an English accent, which makes sense. He's trying to sound, but it didn't register there because the film was just not done that way. So I just accept the film for what it is and then enjoy what it is. And,
I love Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's just the one little piece that bothers me. Usually, just the accent. But I love this. The Machines were writing Dracula fan fiction for Neo, but they couldn't get the accent right.
I love that idea. I love that. I want to see it as a sketch somebody for somewhere to do, which would be fantastic. But is it there? Yeah. Actually, I almost went on a story about my Dracula, which I shouldn't do. We were talking about Carmilla.
Yes.
But I did have a concept that I shared with Seb for an original vampire film. And he's kind of sort of intrigued. But share it with you two later because another time. It's set during World War II.
Ooh. But out of curiosity, since you were talking about like actors that you cast in your head for Jonathan Harker, when you were writing for Carmilla, did you have people you cast any of the characters in your head as before you actually cast Carmilla?
I thought of several, though it wasn't. See, I sometimes do that because I'm dealing with Dracula because it's a large cast. But on the other hand, if I was looking at just Carmilla, I can think of a whole bunch of actors I could think who might play that part, and it would be very interesting. Some of them are now, in my opinion, a little too old, and some I would be reluctant to cast because sometimes there are actors who've already played a vampire. And to me, that's a little bit of something. But among the actors, and this is someone who has played a vampire and who does accents very well, is Chloe Grace Moretz.
Oh.
Anya Wolf-Joy. Anya Taylor-Joy. Whoever.
Anya Taylor-Joy,
Anya Taylor-Joy. She's a very interesting choice. I think for either Laura or Carmilla.
I could see that, yeah.
Yeah. Then I mentioned to Brittney that she's too old now, even though she's not old. She's still a very beautiful and interesting actress and woman. Felicity Jones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you see, I think a bunch of actors I think of in this part. I do tend to want to see Carmilla played by someone who tends to look rather thin. And I find a lot of people want to cast someone very voluptuous in the role. Which I really don't have any objection to per se, but it's just is that Jacques, I pretty much agree with you. She's a very good actress. And so I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, Anne Hathaway." Yes, she could, sure, but I just don't see her. I don't see her as Carmilla. Although I can't objectively say there's any reason she couldn't play the part. And I can't, and it's hard for me to imagine it because right now in my head, Stepy is Carmilla.
I'll take it. I'm always Carmilla in my head, so.
Right now in my head, Stepy is Carmilla, Brittney is Laura. They're just they've imprinted themselves on my brain right now. And so I'll have a bit of a time if I were to direct this again anytime soon. So, by the way, if I do find a way to get together and do the live action stage version of Carmilla and you're available, Stepy, I'm probably not going to direct it. I'll try to find someone else to do it.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
I'm there. I will make myself available. Doing this audio is, very fascinating, presents. And it was really fun having those conversations where, and by the way, just as an actor, you're in really good shape when you're getting to the part where you're asking yourself like really tiny, detailed, nuanced questions, like what is she wearing? What time of day, like what does it smell like in the room? Like when you can get into that kind of stuff, like you're really great. So we did a lot of that. And it was really interesting doing that, even though it's an audio only production, thinking what time of evening is it? What am I wearing? How much sleep has so-and-so gotten? Like things like this, just really.
Are you hungry?
Are you hungry? That was a big question for certain scenes. I think most scenes like how hungry are you? Because this is like you're hangry. This is like really serious, literally life or death hungry. Those kinds of questions, and like it was just really cool to think about that stuff, even though it's audio only. To think about how close are you to Laura. That was another one that I didn't think we would have to think about, but when we did, you could tell. I think you could tell when we were interacting as if we were right next to each other versus interacting as if we were across the room from each other, or one of us would take a step. You could, even though we're not physically acting that out, we would think it as we would say it, and that intention would come across, I think.
Yeah, it was very, all that level of work was absolutely fantastic to see it worked out.
Yeah, and then being able to do that live, like I would have that thought of like I wish this was live. I like that it's going to be audio, so it's kind of out there in perpetuity. But like if this were live, the layers of things that we could experiment with.
And with the audience reacting,
feeling their
energy. Oh my God, that would be so fantastic.
Yeah.
Because when you can feel the audience just reacting in a particular way.
Oh, there's nothing like it. This is why I primarily work in live theater, because there's nothing. The camera will never love you the way a live audience will. I don't know. I said what I said, unless you're Marilyn Monroe, I guess. I don't know. But for me, like, because you can feel that energy, what they're giving to you, and it's like this really cool reciprocal thing. So this is just me saying, please find us a way somehow, universe, to put Carmilla out as a live production, because that'd be amazing.
Yeah, it would. That would be absolutely amazing. Although for me, I mean, I don't want to do it again because I feel I've done it. So I'll be glad to help out, but I don't want to direct it, particularly because I feel I've done that.
Cool.
On the other hand, if I had a chance, to do it as, like I said, as a 9-episode series on Netflix. So we'll see how we'll see how that comes out.
Yep. I mean, or as a German expressionist silent film.
There it is.
Yes.
There it is.
Yes.
We'll make the
yes.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's
absolutely. I'll just I'll put that out there on Craigslist or something. Is there a filmmaker out there who wants to do this?
There will be. That's a great idea. So.
Yeah.
And there's for it. So.
Yeah, but I'm now. Some people are coming in and using this room as well, so I feel I should go because I think you're beginning to hear them.
Okay.
So. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I've really enjoyed myself in many, many ways. Martin, I hope you also get a chance to see or read Wings of Dracula.
I would love that.
Yeah, and because I think you'll... Okay, I'll tell you one major thing I changed. That some people went, what? I cut Van Helsing altogether.
Oh. Okay.
Because... it just seems to be, isn't it more interesting if he's not there? If no one is there to tell them what to do?
Yeah.
No one there to stop any of the fights? So instead, what happens is the vampire expert becomes Harker, because he's the only one who's actually survived direct encounter. And nobody except, Mina respects and loves him, but they don't know him. So he has to trick them into doing what needs to be done.
Oh. I love that.
Yeah. That also is available, ladies and gentlemen, on Amazon. The Wings of Dracula. Okay. We're shameless. We're absolutely shameless.
Yeah, please.
And
shameless promotion. We love shameless promotion.
2 weeks from tonight, Carmilla the radio play, starring this lovely lady as our favorite lady vampire.
Yes, and the trailer for that and a bunch of and everyone's social media links should be in the description of this video. So please check all of that out.
And also at Shadows on the Air the YouTube channel is an interview with Stepy answering some questions about the show.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was, and the one, and Brittney will be answering those questions. Well, she's already answered them, but the video becomes available a week from tonight.
Ooh.
I'm going to let you go.
All right.
I'll stop talking. Oh my God, will he never stop talking? Will he ever do it? Somebody kill him or something. Okay.
Yeah, no, this has been the most I've ever been able to talk to someone about Carmilla, and that just makes me really happy. So yeah. Thank you so much, both.
I can't wait for your review.
Oh yeah, it's coming.
This has been amazing. I want to do, like, since we're talking about shameless plugs really quick. I don't know, is anybody familiar with the poet Sylvia Plath?
Yes.
I thought so. Great. I'm currently producing and starring in a show in which I play Sylvia Plath.
Ooh.
So, follow me on the socials for updates on that. Tickets will be available March 8th, and we will be. It's a show that's over the phone, so you can be done from anywhere. And even if you're international, I can give you a call on Discord or Zoom or whatever. So, if you're interested in interacting with Sylvia Plath on the day of her 30th birthday, you can do that, and follow me on socials to get more info about that. That is my shameless plug of my next project. I figured there's a lot of overlap for some reason between Carmilla and Sylvia Plath, so I would share that with you. Back to Carmilla. This was a blast. Thank you so much for organizing this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So fun.
Thank you so much, Martin.
Yeah.
And thank you, Stepy, for taking part in everything. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you for the audience so much.
Thank you, everyone who showed up.
Yeah. It means a lot.
Peace.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.